Governor Tony Evers is granting another 210 pardons, bringing the total number of pardons to over 2,200 during his time in office. The governor said pardons are, quote, an official act of forgiveness, signaling someone has paid their debt to society and worked to turn their lives around. People convicted of a Wisconsin felony can apply for a pardon if they completed their sentence at least 5 years ago and have no pending criminal charges. A pardon does not reduce any legal penalty. People that are required to register on the sex offender registry are not eligible for a pardon.